All right, everybody, welcome out to our Thursday night Breeze Success Call. Tonight we're going to talk about taxes. Actually, I'm not going to talk about taxes. We have an awesome person on our team who does accounting and is fantastic at this. She's a senior tax preparer. She's been doing it for over 20 years. She's also a gold on our team, and that's Marlene Wright. Marlene has been great over the years. We've gotten to know her, spent a few leadership retreats and being around her and convention and stuff, and just love having her as part of our team. So we're so grateful that she's on with us today. So without I guess I should say this, Marlene usually on Thursday nights is helping with her food pantry in her community, and she took the time to help us out tonight. So I wanted to thank her for that as well. But without any further ado, Marlene, it's all yours.
Are you there, Brendan? Because I just lost you.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. And I'm passionate about the oils, but I'm also passionate about helping people. And I enjoy doing taxes. I enjoy my clients. I've had them for a long time. So I just want to impart some things to think about as it's tax season now, and things to think about for not only for last year, but for next year. Um, so one of the things I want to talk about is your taxes at our level is perfectly fine to go on a Schedule C to be done with your personal return. You do not need to file a separate return for your business um, and then do a separate one for your personal. It can be all included. Um, it is very important to make sure that you have all your receipts. So one of the biggest things I teach is to keep your receipts, all receipts. So if you have a receipt that you buy something for your business for and it's on that filmy receipt that fades real fast, make a copy of that receipt and staple it together. If you're ever audited, the IRS normally only wants originals. However, that is the only exception. They will take those copies as long as everything's attached. So some of the things you can deduct in your doTERRA business is if you buy a product for the very first time, you can deduct that, because obviously we need to know how it smells, how it works, what you do about it, what you do with it. So those can be deducted because we need to know. So if you're at convention and you get a convention kit, all that is full of new products. Same with your enrollment kit. Same with leadership when they come out with their new products. So these are things that if you buy the product for the very first time, you can deduct it. If you're giving out samples, you can deduct that. So some people will buy maybe 2 lavenders, one for personal, one for sharing, and the one that's for sharing, you can deduct. Some people, as we talked about on the morning call, if you end up just sharing some of your personal, you can either count how many drops you put in each vial and do it by the drop and total it up and take that as a deduction, or do a percentage, whatever's best for you. When you have receipts and maybe you're not real good at putting it into QuickBooks or Quicken or even an Excel spreadsheet, stick it in an envelope or however you think, whether it's in the car or you have a file once a month that you go through to put things in. Try and put it in light kinds. It makes it much easier and not so overwhelming and daunting when it comes time to total your stuff up for the end of the year. Another one that's very important is your mileage. Mileage needs a log. Whether you use an app on your phone, whether you write it down on a notebook, whether however you keep it, you just need to make a mileage log, and you need to have went to Mrs. Smith to drop off samples, 7 miles. And you need to have the date. You don't necessarily have to have the time, but you do need to have the date, where you're going, and how many miles it is. This is critical if you are audited. They want to know you're doing it for business. So if you have an office and home, meaning you have a dedicated space that is only for your business, then you can count your mileage right from your house to wherever you're going. If you do not have a dedicated space in your home for your business and therefore don't have an office and home, then you need to make a stop somewhere before your final destination. So let's say you need to go to the post office. Well, then stop and grab a coffee or stop somewhere and take that mileage from that point to the post office. But if you have an office and home, you can take it right from your home to wherever your destination is. But keeping a mileage log is critical. The other thing that's critical is meals. So if you go out to eat with someone you're sharing with, or you get them a coffee, or you go to a team meeting, or you're meeting with your upline, whatever you're doing, you need to write on that receipt who you met with and a brief statement of what you discussed. You only get 50% of your meals anyway, but you need to make sure you have that written on the receipt somewhere. If you have little receipts and you're afraid of losing them, tape them to a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. It fits in any notebook or any file folder real easy. You don't lose them as quickly because they're all taped onto one sheet of paper. So there's lots of ways to keep things organized. But the key factor is when you want to know if you can deduct something, ask yourself if you can argue it to an auditor if you've ever audited. Audits are not rare. They happen quite often, and most of the time it's just a random audit. Just because you have a business doesn't necessarily mean you have a higher chance to be audited. But you want to make sure what you're deducting is true and common for that business industry, and that you have all your receipts to back up what you're trying to deduct. When you are starting a business, sometimes you take a loss on your business. That does not necessarily mean you're going to be audited because you took a loss. It's okay. The IRS industry knows that you will have, when you first start a business, you will have higher expenses and lower income. But pretty soon, we want to see the trend going where you have more income. You still may have a lot of expenses, but pretty soon, those two lines are going to intersect. And your expenses are going to go down somewhat, but your income is going to keep going up because the intent of your business is to have a profit. Intent is a big word when it comes to IRS, but you need to make sure that what you're doing the right thing so that you can make a profit in this business. That's our whole goal when we're sharing with doTERRA, right? We want to share with everyone. So make sure that the things you're doing not only to grow your business, but that you're doing the right things for your taxes. One of the other things that's very important that people don't seem to understand is when you are self-employed, you have to pay self-employment income tax. So you have a general income tax, and that's the tax that you pay on your total income. Once that's figured, we're going to add to that income tax your self-employment tax. And the reason why you have to pay more on the self-employment tax is you are paying both sides of your Social Security and Medicare tax. When you work for an employer, you only pay half, but the employer pays the other half. When you're self-employed, there's no other person to do that other half for you. So you pay both sides of your tax, and you do get a credit for half of it on the front of your 1040, which is also called a long form, but it gives you a credit for half of that tax, and that lowers your income. But on the back, you're going to pay both sides. And so people don't realize that they're paying in addition to their income tax. So you just need to understand that you're going to be paying both sides. Is there any questions? I know I was spitting out information pretty quickly, but I'm happy to answer questions. But it is very important, if anything, just keep your receipts. And if you don't know if you can deduct something, ask a tax professional. Your buddy, the mechanic down the road, may not know the new tax laws or what's going on, And it's good to see a professional when you're learning to do business taxes. It's not required. I'm not pushing one industry over the other. Online systems work, but sometimes the online systems don't ask you the questions of things that you can and cannot deduct. They give you very common things you can deduct, but there's more specific industry type standards that you can't, that it can't ask you if you can deduct. But most places, if you call and ask, can I deduct this? Is this something that's legitimate? Most industry professionals will tell you what you can and can't deduct, whether or not you're their client. But it's a good idea to see a tax professional and ask always for a senior one to help you with your business and your business taxes. Because part of our job is not to just do your taxes. It's to teach you what to do with your money and what you can and cannot deduct. And as you start making a profit with doTERRA and you don't want to pay as much tax, because nobody likes to pay a lot of tax to the government, at least I haven't met any yet, but you want to be able to have that money working for you, and so then we can guide you to do a self-employed retirement program, because then that's money you won't be paying taxes on now, but it's money that's working for you. So there's several different things that we can guide you on that can help lower your taxable income in your business, but it's still money that's working for you. But keep your receipts. Keep your receipts. And if it's not something that's in your personality trait that you're good at, that's not one of your strengths, that's okay. Stuff it in an envelope of like kind things. If you pay with cash, you most definitely have to keep a receipt because that's not traceable. If you pay with a debit card or a credit card, typically it shows up on your bank statement who you bought from. And if you're ever audited, you can at least go back and trace your receipt. Any questions?
Thank you for the suggestion to photocopy those fading receipts, because that's something that, I mean, I keep all my receipts really well, but I've often wondered about those fading ones. So now I'll start photocopying those ones.
Right. The IRS cannot change that industry. Typically, if you're ever audited, they only want originals. But because they couldn't change the industry, this is what they decided to do, and they will accept the copy as long as the original is attached.
Okay.
So, which is good, because pretty soon, right, we don't remember what was on that receipt, and it's still faded. We can't read what it is.
And sometimes, I mean, they fade really fast within a couple months.
Yeah.
They do, and if they take a highlighter to it anywhere, it's faded even faster.
Or tape.
That chemical reaction. Or tape, yep.
Yep. So I appreciate that suggestion. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Taxes do not have to be overwhelming or scary, but the more organized you are, the less scary it is. It doesn't seem so overwhelming. One of the main programs I use is QuickBooks. That seems to be the most user-friendly. You can get your receipts in there, and even if only you use the check register, then it's quick and easy to print out a report at the end of the year. So that's one of the ones I use the most. It's not the only program out there. Use whatever program you're happy with. I still have clients that bring me in ledger sheets where they've done everything by hand. So it's whatever is comfortable for you. It's however you feel best as far as how you organize. But one of the things, just keep your receipts and keep them in like-kind envelopes. If that's all you can do, that's a whole lot better than coming into me with a big bucket or a garbage can or a cookie jar or your file cabinet. You know, these are things that I've all had come into my office, and it's just much easier if we can get you into at least doing envelopes or folders of like kind. Because it gets overwhelming for us if you come in with a huge grocery bag or a black garbage bag full of receipts. That's incredibly overwhelming for anybody. We don't like that so much.
I can't imagine. That would be rough.
I hope you charge extra for that.
That's
Yes, we do.
exactly what somebody said in the morning session.
That's
My
exactly it. We
CPA
do.
My CPA charges extra if we're not organized. And he's always like, I'm so glad you just have this put together because I can charge you a lot less for that.
Exactly. It does affect your bill. But part of our job as tax professionals, especially when you're new, is we help guide you on how to categorize your things. And every industry is a little bit different as far as things that are common in that industry. So that, if we share oils, but if you try and claim a chainsaw, I'm going to question that because chainsaws and the oil industry they don't go together.
You're just making
Not
your own
unless
arbor vitae.
There you go. I was just saying, unless you're cutting down your own trees to make it. But so it has to be like kind if it's and logical. People try and claim all kinds of stuff, but that doesn't mean you actually get to claim it. But keeping things somewhat organized, but we just guide you. And if you aren't sure even what categories to use, you can always go to irs.gov and print a Schedule C. They have the most common categories right there listed on the form, where you can start learning what works for you and what categories you're going to use often.
Yeah. I also like the point you brought across about asking, call an accountant, call those kind of people. I happen to be lucky enough that one of my buddies, he used to work for the IRS, and now he's works for some entity that audits the IRS. So I've got my accountant. He's been super awesome, but even sometimes I'll like, hey, is this legit? Is this something we can do? And he's like, yeah, or maybe not, whatever. But he's been really good to have. So yeah, any help you can get from anyone is a great thing as far as that goes.
And it's always okay to ask. We would rather you ask than come in with a bunch of stuff thinking you get to deduct it, and I'm going to go, I'm sorry, but you can't even deduct that. And now you're paying higher taxes. So it's always good to ask, but be careful who you're listening to as far as people giving you advice. If it's somebody that doesn't own a business, but they're giving you business tax advice, maybe question that a little bit. Just kind of think through, but don't hesitate to call and ask. That's what we're here for. And during tax season, yes, we're busy. We may respond at funny hours. Normally at this time of year, I'm working 12. But it's the nature of the beast. But usually we stop and answer questions for people so that we can guide you the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I'm pretty sure it's only me and Brandon and Stacy.
Nobody else
Oh,
on?
okay.
No, that's it.
That's okay. But this is the opportunity and time that we start gathering our stuff together and we start getting ready. The 1099s came out from doTERRA. If you had $600 or more of income, they sent you a 1099, and you have to report it. Even if you didn't make $600, you still have to report positive income on the Schedule C. And for, if you're a couple like Brandon and Melissa, they can still do a Schedule C, and they can do 2 Schedule Cs so that each of them will get Social Security and Medicare tax built into their system. So you don't necessarily have to file a partnership return or a corporate return for this business. Now, as people get up into the higher levels and are diversifying their business and doing more with it, then we can guide you at, well, that might be a good time to develop to be incorporated or to be a partnership. But at this level for all of us, we're perfectly fine just doing Schedule Cs and filing with your personal return.
We started filing as an S Corp last year, and that really did make a big difference. It's helped out a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's only been the last 2 years that we've been doing it that way.
Yeah, and it really, we guide you because at most levels, Schedule C is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Until you get up a little bit and doing other things, then you need to break away and do a separate return, but really it just takes that guidance to say, okay, this is the time you want to go do that, because it's a lot of extra expense to file as a corporate return or partnership at this level.
Well,
and
yeah,
go do
and
taxes
yeah,
for other people in doTERRA.
that's the beautiful thing is we get to rely on other professionals for advice on these kind of things, because heaven knows if I was trying to do this all by myself, I'd be audited every year and probably thrown in jail for just not even knowing what the heck I'm doing. So we're greatly
Right.
appreciative for people like you.
Well, I've been in the industry a long time. I do enjoy it. It is a lot of new tax laws. There will be many tax law changes coming in 2017. There always is whenever there's a new administration or a new Congress. There's always tax law changes, and tax laws come from Congress. So if you don't like a tax law, you can complain about it, but it's your Congress person that is going to be the one to change it. So, but there will be a great many changes coming over the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah,
so it's something to keep in mind and kind of pay attention to as they're changing some things.
I hadn't even thought about that part of it, so that's definitely good to be thinking about.
Right. We're hearing rumblings, but until things are more concrete, it's nothing we're too much worried about. Although at this point, this Congress and the current administration is more pro-business. So I would assume actually there's going to be some more tax benefits and breaks for businesses, especially small ones. So, but we'll see what comes out of Congress over the next year. But definitely, when you have questions, ask a professional. I'm good at doing taxes. I do several of the doTERRA people up here in Alaska, but you don't want me, fixing your car. So you got to pick where you want your information. We get clients all the time. Well, my buddy said I could do this, and I'm like, what does your buddy do? Is he a tax person? Well, no, he fixes my car. Okay, but you don't want me telling you what to do, how to fix a car. Bad plan. I know where to put the gas. I know where to put the oil.
Barely.
That's my knowledge, right? So it's imperative that you have a question, just to at least do research. Call IRS, call a tax professional or a CPA. At HR Block, there are my level and stuff that were the same as CPAs. So you can ask. You can call anyone, but just ask for a senior preparer wherever you go. It makes a difference because they know the ins and outs. They've been in the trenches long enough to know the ins and outs of what you can and cannot deduct.
So Marlene, do you do, when you do your travel expenses, do you do per diem or do you do the cost of everything?
I do actual. So per diem doesn't really work as well for us as typically we aren't, because per diem is more about when your company, usually if your wages, and they send you to another location to do work. So when I travel, like for leadership, as we're getting ready to gear up for leadership here in a couple weeks, we can expense our hotel, we can expense our food, we can expense taxis if we use taxis, parking if we use parking. So we do actual expenses, especially in the U.S. But per diem doesn't usually give you the same benefit, and we take actual expenses when we travel locally. And even if you're in Diamond Club and you are out on the road, you do your actual expenses. You just got to keep track. But if you're being reimbursed from one of the diamonds, we need to subtract that and take the difference.
Okay.
So this is another place where keeping track of your mileage is a really critical part, especially if you're in Diamond Club or if you travel to do several classes. So go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So just going to say, so do you not do the per diem because you feel like the actual turns out to be more?
Actual is almost always better. But per diem is mainly meant for someone who works for a company who is paying for some of their travel, or they're being forced to take, hey, I need you to go down to Louisiana to work on this construction crew for a while.
Yeah.
to rebuild or whatever.
Because
That's more for that. But you can do per diem, but almost always it's coming out better with actual.
Yeah, we switched to per diem about 2 years ago, and it seems like it works out to be more. But for us though. But I was wondering what you did. So you do actual cost. We always track both.
Well, per diem is listed, so it's what the government rate says
Right.
is that area.
Yeah.
So I watch both, but typically for those up here, especially in Alaska, because for us, if we're going to travel, it's an expense.
Yeah.
That's true.
So we do the actual, because for us that works out better. That may not be necessarily be true in lower 48, and you need to look at the big picture. So you look at both.
That's true.
So
I didn't think about that. So your actual cost is higher.
Right, because we typically have to fly out of.
Yeah. Huh. Okay, well that's cool. Yeah, I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, because you're driving 8 hours, you're still in the state of Alaska.
Yeah.
So, so for us, it's the actual is better. For you guys, when you can jump in your car and in just a few hours you're in a different state, per diem is going to work better.
Yeah.
Maybe, but it's still something you want to keep track and always put in your travel expenses. Because you're going to look at both, and whoever's going to work on your taxes is going to look at both.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And there's different rules when you're incorporated, as if you're doing a corporate return or partnership. There's some different rules between those and doing a personal return.
Oh, okay.
So there's some nuances there that have just a little bit different rules. But just keep track of everything, and your tax professional should always be looking at both. So for those of us up here in Alaska, we almost take the actual, because by the time we fly out of here, for us it's usually $500 to $600 just to get down to Salt Lake just with our plane ticket. Or if we're going to leadership, that's not much less. So just to get out initially for us is much more expensive.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it needs to be reasonable. That's the other thing. It has to be reasonable. So if you're going to leadership, as we're gearing up to go, you don't want to stay at the most expensive hotel necessarily and think you should be able to deduct a $600 a night hotel when there's a $250 a night hotel right next door. IRS does look at that being reasonable, common and reasonable for your industry and area.
Makes
like
sense.
The earlier thing, you don't want me deducting a chainsaw on my tax return when I'm sharing oils. That doesn't make sense. But, buying a bunch of diffusers makes total sense. But just keep track of your receipts. That's the biggest thing, because people, they will do fine for a little while and then they forget, and they go to the end of the year and it becomes more stressful, more overwhelming as they try and get the receipts and stuff together. But if you have any questions, you guys can always just find me on Facebook, shoot me a message, or call me. Kaylee knows how to get a hold of me, and Brandon and Melissa know how to get a hold of me. So you can just shoot me a message.
No, I don't.
and at least I can answer that and guide you. So whether you are doing your own return or you see a professional, we can still guide you. And sometimes professionals can have a different way of grouping things, and that's okay. Like we talked in the morning call about advertising. I think Melissa said that their person puts their samples in advertising. That's okay. Another professional may put it in under supplies or its own separate line item for sharing. That's okay too. So you can have different opinions of where you put things, and that's all right, as long as the numbers get in there. Any other questions?
We had lots in the morning.
We did, and and Kaylee, you got any questions?
No.
She's like, no, Mom does them.
But I'm not one of the garbage bag people, so at least I'm nice to
better
her.
than that. But I've had people come in with the strangest things full of receipts. It's just,
She has horror stories. I kid you not.
But part of our job is to guide everybody, and if you're looking for a program to help you, like a check register or Quicken or QuickBooks, something like that is really good. It's user friendly, makes it easier. You can scan in your receipts if you want, but the IRS still wants the original. And the other thing is you can do your mileage log with an app on your phone or on just a notebook in your car.
I just got a mileage app called Mile IQ. I just downloaded that last week, and it's really easy. I really like that one, and it's free. So,
but does it have a place to take note of what you did on that trip?
I think so. I've only done one since I did it. So.
Oh, it does, because Brooke was asking about it today. Because you swipe one way if it's personal and swipe the other if it's business, right?
But then you can go in and edit and.
But then you can go in and edit it. Okay.
Right.
All right.
And as the industry is getting more techy about that kind of stuff, I'm sure that IRS is going to have to make some changes in what they accept. So, but with the mileage logs, those apps, now that you can put in went to the post office, or of course you guys, we don't get mail like you guys in lower 48, but for us it's a distance to go to the post office, but we can go to the post office, or for running a class somewhere, that kind of stuff, we can put that in there. And you just need to be descriptive enough, you know what you're doing. And on your postal receipts, if you're mailing a bunch of samples out, write the names down of who you're sending mail out to.
Mm.
You know how you get that long, if you're sending out 4 or 5 different packages and you get that long receipt, just put the names on there somewhere so that you know, 1, who they were for follow-up, but 2, it's showing, if you're ever audited, that you were mailing out samples to person X, Y, and Z.
Would you recommend writing what you mailed also on that receipt?
I do, because it's my brain, and I need to know that I sent Jane Doe some lavender, and even though, because sometimes I don't always get it into my other book, that I can look and go, oh, that's right, I sent her lavender, I better go check on that.
Yeah, sometimes I remember and sometimes I forget.
Right. And my life's crazy, and not always can I keep up with everything, just like everybody else. Everybody's busy with their lives. So I usually write it in more than one place, because if I forgot in one place, I typically have a backup. So, and this is one of the things that you have to figure out what kind of works for you. So, because everybody's a little bit different, and how you organize yourself is a little bit different, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be my way or just your way. So you can most certainly figure out what works for you, and your tax professional can work with that. But the more organized you come in, the happier we are, the faster we are at being able to do your tax return.
And then they come home happy.
Yes, it does make our life easier when it's all organized, because I have some clients that everything is just done beautifully, and I'm like, I love you. And I can plug in the return, and I can get it done faster. And don't expect to come in with a huge business return and expect it to be done right there. Please understand that we have lots of clients too, and it takes us time. But the more organized you are, the faster we can get it done. So the faster we can get your return done. But if you come in with a big old mess, you're going to wait. And don't come in with a big mess on the last day of tax season. Not cool. That causes us stress. But I'm to the point, I just say, that's great, I'll file your extension right away. So,
sure.
Yeah. But it's okay. So just don't hesitate to ask questions. And I usually try and share, if I know that there's some sort of tax law that changes, I usually try and put it out there so that we can spread that out through the team to be aware. But definitely, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to find me on Facebook or through Melissa and Brandon or Kaylee. She can usually find me pretty quickly, and I'm happy to help.
Good. Okay. Well, if that's it, does anybody have any last minute questions?